It's connecting. Hello and welcome to the special webinar on COVID-19 situation. I know this is short notice, but thank you for joining us today. And we'll be going over some things that are critical to know as a remote IT person or as a client, depending on IT services to be available while we're potentially working from home. We have today with us Mike Caffrey, who is the Vice President and Partner in Avero Infrastructure, and he's leading the charge as far as setting up our clients for success through this uncertain and difficult period. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Avi. How's it going?
Good, man. So we have, and if you guys, there's a slideshow that accompanies this podcast or webinar. So feel free to ask questions, and there's a lighthearted poll somewhere on the webinar too. So if you could answer that, that'll help us lighten the moment. So without further ado, Mike.
Hey, it's been a little bit stressful lately. It's a good time to be an IT guy, and it's a stressful time to be an IT guy. I wanted to first cover, though, some of what you already know. COVID-19 is unique. That's why they call it novel. It's spread through contact. It's highly contagious, and we're recommended to do social distancing. Those of you that have help desks know that social distancing makes life pretty difficult if your help desk guy is standing next to or required to stand next to whoever's having problems. So what are you seeing out there? We're seeing stock market swings, huge swings in the stock market. You're seeing interest rates drop to dang near zero. Federal, state, and local governments are issuing edicts on what we can and cannot do. Some businesses are shutting down or changing the way they deliver their product or service, and that's affecting product availability in some markets, which for IT guys, that means there might be delays in getting hardware like laptops, servers, software, and operating systems. I've heard people predict that this will blow over in a couple weeks. In fact, over the weekend, got a couple quote-unquote emergency calls stating to that effect, I need something to get me through the next couple weeks. The plan, though, should be that this pattern continues for months and be pleasantly surprised if it's shorter. In other words, whatever you do, plan this new normal to be at least for months, and who knows, this new normal might be your gateway to better service in the future. Do not shortchange your solutions, though, by planning to slap a Band-Aid on it for 2 weeks by every measure. And you can check your news source, whether it's CDC or anybody else. This is a months-long journey that we've just started. And hopefully we're able to get through it, not just survive it, but get through it successfully. So, okay, so let's talk about what we know, or excuse me, let's talk about what's happening. People are reacting to news, things they read on Google, Facebook, conjecture, feelings. Some may say that they're even overreacting. It doesn't matter what's being said. Our reality as IT people is that we have to deal with it, whatever it is. So here it goes. What we need to be looking at, if we don't have it already, is the ability to do virtual meetings always, not sometimes, always. Yes, the social distancing part is an element that feeds it, but we could have been doing this long ago. And those can be, if you're used to conducting meetings this way, it can be an effective way to have a meeting. It's mature technology, so you're not introducing risk into your environment. And if you don't already have software, time to select a standard before your customers do, so that you won't have to answer questions about tools you know nothing about. And by the way, when you get that when you make that selection, buy a decent license, not the free one, but buy the paid for one, so that when you have problems with it, you'll get support. Next slide, please. So what will happen? It's very possible that your organization is going to want you to extend your cybersecurity perimeter to the home office computer. And the reason I say that is many of you might have a part of your workforce that has had laptops and maybe even hotspots that go home with them so they can securely log into your systems. Laptops, the kind of laptop you might want, certainly with a profile that you might want to build, might not be available to you right now. What that means is if you're used to having Windows 10 Pro and having it fully patched, not going to be there, right? Application supported versions and having that patched, not going to be there. Also, security. Do you have mobile device management on your the same as what you have on your organization's computers? Not going to have that either. See, it's extending the security perimeter to include home office computers that the organization doesn't own is going to bring with it lots of other things for you to follow up on. For your cloud-based stuff like email, virtual meetings, stuff like that, you'll be fine. But when you're looking at how you access your on-premise software, do you have VPN? Do you have experience with a VPN if you're the user? Having that kind of secure access to a home office computer might cause you fits in the beginning as people grow used to and gain experience with these new tools. Be prepared, by the way, that you might end up with a much bigger help desk than what you planned. Those of us that have, are in the rural environment, we don't have a lot of resources dedicated to help desk. So getting calls over tools that don't work or don't work for me, those calls, those tickets might double, even triple over the short run. So how's COVID-19 affected your IT service level expectations? Your department now has to have a reset on its expectations, not just your users' expectations of your department, but your department's expectations of how they deliver that service. We all are creatures of habit. And what I've seen is our folks that are used to providing the best service that they know how are feeling like they still need to walk down the hall, hover over the person having the problem and assist them as best they can. Asking them to do this same thing via Zoom meeting, for example, or any type of screen share is very difficult for them to do. It is a change for the IT guy, and it is a change for the customer, a change in an expectation. How am I going to get through this? How can you help me if you're not here? You're always here. You used to be here. You're not here anymore. I don't know why. The point is this can be done, but it's going to take some prodding on your part to get your people to do things differently than the way they've done it before.
Mike, I got to jump in with a question. This is all sudden. I like to say that this went from 0 to 100 in no time last week. So between Friday and now, we've been on phone calls discussing specific needs for courtrooms and other stuff. What else have you seen this morning that our clients are either not prepared for, are prepared for, or struggling with?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that because I was looking for process problems where we've asked them to do something different. I was looking for problems with some of the subtle complexities that come with application software. But what we are seeing more of are problems with the simple things, right? Somebody has never used VPN before, and now they're using it for the first time today, this morning, right? Somebody needed to do a screen share, and not only were they unaware that they had a camera on their computer, but they weren't aware of how to get audio to work. So you can imagine it's almost comical to watch somebody fool around with something and you don't have the ability to communicate with them. It's the simple things that seem to be cropping up right now. I would look for those problems over time to go away, and eventually let's talk about the meat of this, which is applications and a remote service from an application. Next slide is how can we rise to this challenge? Every crisis, every challenge that I've had in my career has represented a huge opportunity, an opportunity to change minds, either about the way my department performs, to change minds about perhaps in your case, how funding is allocated, maybe the things that you've felt you've needed as a department all along. Now all of a sudden there's an opening, there's a crack in the door here where we can make another case for going virtual. These things are challenging, yes, and it's stressful, I get that. But these challenges also represent great opportunity to make a change within the organization that's lasting. The reason we call this the new normal is you have an opportunity now to make significant change within your organization that is for the better. These are things that we could have done years ago, chose not to for whatever reason, and here we are today, right, struggling. Again, back to the basics, when you look at remote access and control, communication, huge communication processes that were never documented before. Guess what? Now they need documentation. How do you access that documentation? Not a problem before when we're all in the same office. Today it's a problem because I'm not accessing all my documentation from the office. Has anybody been asked to provide security to a home office desktop that's not owned by the organization? That was a hard and fast rule before that now needs to be relaxed. Next slide, please. So what are some of the limitations to success, again, for your IT department? You guys probably sometime after 2008 were faced with staffing reductions. So, you know, what you have is what you got. And by the way, even if you said or had approval to double your staff, finding the right people to provide the service level you want is not something that you can correct overnight. Security, chances are most of you, in my experience, have done some of this, most of this, in terms of buttoning up your security profile. Very rarely have we seen anybody where security is buttoned up tight the way they wanted it to be. Again, that's a limitation also because security is going to factor into your remote environment always. Budget, again, budget has always been a concern for IT people, and now you got a chance to take advantage of this situation to get the things that you need. You won't get what you want, but you certainly have the organization listening now to what you need. Understand that one of the other limitations you're going to have, certainly if you don't have the staffing, is there will be a learning curve where you have no experience with new tools. Learning curve for your staff, learning curve for your customers, it's there. It has to be dealt with, and it will take a while for some folks to get used to the new normal. Infrastructure is not adequate. Things that were maybe overlooked before, they were sufficient before, but aren't adequate in a new bandwidth-heavy environment. Is your wireless environment capable of handling more customers in a remote environment? Is your wired bandwidth capable of handling the solution that you're about to place? If your infrastructure obviously has been left unattended for years, you got some distance to make up there. As a service vendors that aren't prepared, I expect maybe this isn't a problem today, but I expect as more and more of us have to deal with a now months-long, if you want to call it a service embargo, expect that some of our vendors will not be able to handle the volume that's going to hit them. All of us coming at them with our different needs are going to stress some of our vendors. You probably saw on Friday there was an announcement that I want to say from Microsoft and from Zoom, where they're offering free things for people that are now trying to just get through this bump in the road, if you will. Those vendors, Zoom being one of them, I think, I hope they have the infrastructure to take on the added bandwidth, but and they're about to be crushed.
We'll find out.
We're about to. Right? So here's some other thoughts, and probably something you don't want to think about, but your executives, your customers might even be thinking, you still have project work to do. Your thinking is I've got added work that has come over the last 2 weeks, and their thinking is well, what about the projects? What about my project, right? So even if you have the resources, it is impossible to gauge at this point what the impact is going to be to your department and its ability to deliver on those projects. So you need to examine your milestones. Are my milestones adequate? Do I need to adjust my project plan? And even further, maybe a subtlety to what you do, but is your organization capable of taking on more change at this point in time? Look at those milestones. If they're close in and need to be adjusted, push them out with reservations, but also with full, with the full, how do you say, knowledge of your executives, that they understand why you're pushing those things out. And everybody needs to understand the organization is going to go through a huge amount of change, whether or not you have a project going in. Another thing to consider when you look at this at collaboration is a lot of us aren't good at collaboration. We might be good at collaboration face to face, but most of us, in my experience, are terrible at virtual collaboration. It's very difficult. It's difficult for some personalities to engage. Some of your team will need more prodding to get them to feel not just comfortable in a virtual setting for collaboration and project work, but sometimes some of the simple stuff is speaking up in the meeting, where they wouldn't have had a problem speaking up in a face-to-face meeting. They might be totally silent during your virtual meetings. Need to perhaps find another speed for these folks, and hopefully they'll have no problem adjusting over the long term. The last item when it comes to project work is you need to be creative. Before, your projects may have been defined in part by your vendors, might have been the definitions or the requirements would have been part of your users' input, but now we need to get a different kind of creative, because it's just been pushed on top of us that we have this new need. So what should I look out for? Security, I can't emphasize it enough. Security, security, security. If your thinking is you were almost there, almost buttoned up in your environment 2 weeks ago, you have become another level of vulnerable in this new, about to be more virtual environment. Security always becomes an issue when organizations rely on cloud software, so you'll need to obviously stay vigilant, but it becomes an even bigger issue when your on-premise software now needs to be accessed remotely. I'm not saying that this is a huge gap, but again, whatever was there as a gap is now going to become more pronounced. Other things you should look out for is opportunities to reset expectations with your execs and your users. Some of us have users, users that are citizens, right? It is going to be very difficult to reset their expectations, but for your users and your executives, hopefully you'll get a lot more acceptance amongst that group, that you'll be able to weather this storm a little bit easier than maybe you otherwise would have expected. And then again, prepare for an onslaught of help desk calls and tickets. It's going to stress the number of people you have dedicated to that operation. So this last bit I call Let's Get Tactical. I want to open it up for questions and comments. I want to hear what's going on out there that you guys are seeing that maybe is unusual, something that I haven't mentioned. I'd love to learn more. Something that maybe happens in your neck of the woods that might be unusual. Do we have any comments out there?
I don't see any, but I'm going to launch this poll that should get us some inputs from our audience. But no, while we wait for questions, do you see any unusual cases for virtual services, or have you been requested for something unusual?
I never would have guessed that we would have been in this position this afternoon, AV, but for those of you that have court systems that are part of of your organization. Tennessee's Supreme Court handed down an edict that says basically for example, inmates, family, all those people do not need to attend a hearing in the courtroom. Now, I probably used all the wrong terminology in there, but basically what we have to create now is a virtual courtroom. Had we had time to do this, I'm sure it could have been much better thought out. But what we were asked to do over the weekend is provide a way for every participant in the courtroom to attend a meeting that's directed by the judge and have that be just as effective as it was before. When you're talking about adult courtrooms or adult hearings, I think that's one level. But when you talk about juvenile, or you have biological parents, you have guardian ad litems, you have step parents, you have any, and by the way, they can all have their own lawyers, right? This becomes an incredibly large task for providing virtual services. We're still not sure how this is going to shake out. This morning was our first attempt at providing this service after being notified Friday night. But I look forward to see how this develops.
All right, so we have one question, and it says, I'm curious about rapid deployment of VTC services, such as Zoom, Meeting, GoToMeeting, Skype, etc. I foresee the need to grow our number quickly.
Yeah, so yes. the one of the examples that we had this morning was somebody that was invited to a Zoom meeting, and it was a fail. We probably spent 20 minutes trying to help this person understand what I think is a very simple task. Obviously, we overlooked something, and that's the way it's going to be with a lot of folks. I come to realize is it's simple for you, AV, or I to join a Zoom meeting. How many hundreds or even thousands of these things have we done? But ask somebody that has rarely joined one of those meetings, and even something as simple as clicking that URL has been difficult. As far as the deployment part goes, right now, if you haven't done it already, if you're buying your, in this case, Zoom licenses, for example, through a reseller, there are, I don't know why, there are delays. So if you're looking for your government discount to come through a reseller, it may take days. If you got a credit card and don't mind spending 17% more, then throw the credit card out there and you can probably have all of the licenses you need within an hour. Deployment though, doling them out, who gets what level of license and all that other stuff. What we did is we went to a list of department heads and went back to department heads and asked them who in their department should have the ability to open a meeting, knowing that anybody else in that department can attend.
Yeah, and I just have another question come in that says, could those links be hacking attacks? Are they spoofing Zoom links yet?
Haven't seen that yet. That's a great question. In fact, when you look at the best versions of the Zoom meeting, for example, it offers you the ability to do an audio ID on the person that is attending, in this case, a courtroom session, right? That doesn't mean that it's not hackable. Zoom also, by the way, gives you the ability to kick out people that are attending a meeting that shouldn't be there. I want to say that most of the time when I've been the host of a meeting, I've been able to see who said they were going to attend and recognize those. I suppose if you had a meeting that had 30, 40, 100 people in it, people might join a meeting that were unintended or shouldn't be there even. But that's a great question. I don't know. They offer encryption as part of their service, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and to your previous point about purchasing, all of our clients work under strict guidelines from cities, states, their boards. I would be looking at some restrictions being lifted on how much you can spend on a credit card. Because between Friday and today,
No, you're right.
our clients have had to go out and buy licenses and equipment to make sure that the courts are functioning this morning.
No, absolutely. I think you are going to see some relaxing of some of those rules that used to be hard and fast. You know, there's no way, and you get your hand slapped if you do. I think you're going to see more money flowing towards fixing some of these challenges out there. But I think, again, back to that last question, always having an eye on security when choosing these tools, how you're going to provide it, how you're going to know it when somebody has breached it. Great questions. And I'm sure if you have an eye for that kind of stuff, you can make a great purchase. These products, by the way, don't take those things lightly. So, and I can only speak to a couple of them, but I've been impressed from a security point of view in what some of the most popular products out there have been able to do.
Excellent. So we have, it's not a question, it's a comment from Travis Gardner, who's the CIO at the Knoxville Airport. Says, FYI, this hit the aviation industry pretty hard on Friday. The Department of Homeland Security has issued an awareness message regarding a malicious website masquerading as a live map for coronavirus global cases. This is from Johns Hopkins. The map is currently circulating on the internet to entice unwitting users to visit. Visiting the website infects the user's computer with an information stealing program that can detect and extract a variety of sensitive data. The URL for the malicious site, I'm not going to read this because we don't want it out there, but do not click on that link if you see it. Please use extreme caution when you see something like this. Cyber actors are using this world event to try to get you to click and visit. The AAAE Pandemic Resources COVID-19 website has the correct link to the map. We keep saying, we joke about not clicking on stuff that says click here now,
Right.
unless you're absolutely sure, and it's just
it's hard
more
to
now.
believe that there are people out there that whose first thought is how they can take advantage of others during this difficult period in history. And by the way, if you look at what's happened over the last couple of weeks, this is historic. But you can't let your guard down. Security is still of the utmost importance. And again, I think you're going to see more attacks. I think you're going to see a lot more in terms of phishing. By the way, thanks for that tip, Travis. That was a great catch. But I don't know what to say other than to be vigilant. People are taking advantage of our wanting to bring solutions to market or to our customers quickly. And they're thinking we're going to let our guard down briefly. And when we do, they're going to nail us. So again, thanks, Travis, for finding that.
So do you think, this is my question, self-service portals, we talk about this a lot with our clients, and they mean different things to different people, right? If I'm a city, I'm looking at complaint portals or utility billing. If I'm a county, I want my tags renewed. How are some of our clients dealing with social distancing when you clearly need to be at a window talking to a person?
So here's my thing. And so I grew up in a big city. I've lived most of my life in a big city. But you know as well as I do, when it's come to choosing some of these software solutions, those portals are not top of mind. That is not what our customers have been asking for. And unfortunately, it's left us in a position now where most of the services that our customers deliver are face-to-face. I think that this will now become, once people get used to the fact that this could be a months-long process, and number two, that COVID-19 is the first of maybe over the rest of our lifetimes, the first of several of these type of pandemics that may occur, well, then I think it's going to have us rethink how service is delivered for cities county, any type of state and local government. Again, before, and you've seen it too, right? This is, I like this thing, I like that feature, I like that feature in the new search. But when you look at the portal options, it was like, yeah, no, my guys aren't ready for that yet.
Right. And I think, and Travis just wrote in again, he's like, my point is that don't let the users choose the tool, let IT dictate.
Yes.
And in many ways, this is sort of accelerating what you and I have been talking about. Proliferation of remote work, just using less hands-on expertise to do more with existing or newer tools.
Right. I mean, so Travis, that's a great point, but I want you to consider also that a lot of IT folks, key IT folks, aren't even being included in the conversation. So I agree. Best practice is your customers are part of that decision, obviously your financial folks, but your IT folks should be part of that conversation also, that they can help direct where this all goes. But many times it's unfortunate, for whatever reason, the IT guys are left out until maybe the very end. And that's not right. I think the organization could be much more efficient in their spend and in their deployment if IT guys were included earlier in the software development cycle.
Okay, I don't see any more questions.
All right.
Unless I'm doing this wrong, which is very likely.
Let's get a help desk.
Yeah. If there's no more thoughts, Mike, I think we'll circle back and put this out there and give them an update sometime midweek. See how we go from here. But
good luck.
oh no, here the poll is still open. I'm going to end it and see what came out. So 11 people voted. I shouldn't say numbers. So 18% say that they're ready for the zombie attack.
Oh.
73% say that they're concerned but not in a panic, and 18% are not worried at all.
Not worried at all.
Yeah. So
here's my take. Don't you find it interesting that for the last few weeks we're not hearing anything about gun sales in the U.S.?
What are you talking? Ammo site websites are sold out of ammo and guns.
Yes, it's the zombie apocalypse. I mean, I'm thinking IT thoughts, right? And other people are thinking, how are they going to nab the toilet paper that Amazon delivered to my front door? So yeah, at gunpoint, I guess.
We're still on air. This wasn't about anything else but being ready as IT professionals to take on the crisis.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll put out notes and recordings of this session, and look forward to doing this again, Mike.
Thanks everyone.